Gina Foster, and you're watching Independent Chick. We're happy to have you, and I'm very happy to have my panelist, Kim Wheeler. She is a media specialist. We have Christy Anderson, who is a graduate student of First Nation Studies, and we have Gabrielle Ogilvie. Did I say it right?
Ogilvie, yeah.
Okay, great. Performer and also a radio DJ. Thank you so much for joining us today. So today we're talking about the complexities of women friendships. Do you believe that women friendships are complex?
I don't think they have to be.
But are they? They can.
Occasionally they can be, but I mean, if you're going to be honest and you know, your friends, usually you're friends with like-minded people, right? So why should it have to be complicated? I mean, who's making it complicated if your friendships are complicated?
Good point. Gabrielle?
Yeah, they're definitely complex. Yeah, I find it easier. My friendships with my guy friends are much easier. I think there's just a lot less political landmines to avoid with guys than with girls.
Do we have to be more sensitive to each other? Is that it? Is where we have to kind of like cuddle and love each other, and if you do something wrong, it's like, how dare you?
Kind of.
See, and I kind of disagree with that perspective. I find that friendships with men are very complicated.
Yeah.
I find that trying to have a real honest friendship with a man ends up getting emotionally intimate and entangled, and then emotions can start to develop, and all of a sudden this friendship starts developing attraction. Like it's like without fail. I cannot be friends with men.
So
I have learned
thing.
that.
It's a personal
definitely.
Thing. We've talked about male friendships and how complex that they can be. If you add too much intimacy into it, it can be complex.
Yeah, and I think it also depends on, your age group, right? So like I'm in my mid-40s.
That's true.
I'm married. I'm friends with my husband's best friends, right? I have no problem, going out and meeting with them and talking with them about some pretty intimate personal issues, right? We golf together when my husband's out of town, right? And it's just golf, and nothing's complicated. So I think, sometimes if you're friends with men, it's going to depend on where you are in your own life too, if that becomes more complicated.
I would agree with that, because I'm definitely, I'm a single mom and I have 2 kids, and so I'm always kind of on the lookout for that next victim, and so I can't be friends with men. And so what I do is I choose to pour my energy into developing great relationships with women, which is something I avoided doing most of my life. I just, hung out with guys because I felt like that was who I could connect with, but as I've grown, I've realized that what I was really missing, what was really key, was having some solid female friendships in my life. So it's something I've been working on in the last few years, and it's definitely paid off, but they are certainly complex.
Well, do you think that women support each other enough in their friendship, or is there always that underlining element of competition between women?
I think it depends on how many
career,
people
finances?
are in your circle of friends. Like I have 3 very close female friends in my life, and we are all really, really supportive of one another. And we don't, go, okay, well, she's doing this, so I have to do something better, and she lost all this weight, so I better start hitting the gym, right? I find that we're all really supportive of each other, and again, maybe that's our age group, right?
Is it better to have a smaller, tight group of friends than having to be friends with everybody?
I would say, yeah, definitely, because that's when it does get really complicated, right? Because you're balancing all these different female friends, and it's like, okay, well, let's do this and let's do that, or let's go here, and there's just so much going on with life in general, and if you have children, you're always so really busy a lot, right? And work, and you throw that in, and then now you're trying to have friendships with 10, 12 females. I prefer to keep my circle small.
I think for me, I was trying to be friends with everybody, and so my circle was really big, but then I realized that the friendships that were true friendships was when my group became very small and very tight, and then there became an element of personal intimacy with women, and rather trying to be this everybody's best friend.
I come from a bit of a different perspective. So I had a really close-knit group of friends out of high school, and we kind of followed each other as we went to college and university, and as we kind of entered the working world. I found that we started to drift apart a little bit. And I think it's interesting that I'm here talking on a show called Independent Chick, because I think when I was younger, I had a lot of issues setting boundaries with my friends. You know, when something wasn't okay, I didn't want to offend them, you know, and you don't want to like hit that landmine, you know. So I would kind of let everything go, and anything that was said, it was okay with me, I was fine. But as I started to grow independent and in my career, realized, okay, some things aren't okay. But then bringing that up with these friends that you'd been, you know, known for so long, I don't think it worked very well with them. And so
that's exactly what I've talked about
Yeah.
too, is are women too dependent on each other for
Yes.
approval from their boyfriends or getting advice, or are we too dependent on each other in closer friendships to get that approval?
I'm not.
You're not.
No,
You're like,
no.
You're
No,
an
you know what?
independent.
Like, I know who I am as a person. I know what works for me, and I know what doesn't. And sometimes, you know what? Those 3 close friends, sometimes they really, really make me angry. And I bet you sometimes I really make them angry too, right? And then if it gets to the point, like we say, okay, you know what? You just did this, and it hurt my feelings, and here's why. And we have no problem saying those things to one another. And it's still difficult to voice how you really feel to your friends, and you know, and or to your family, right? It's just about being honest with who you are, but we can, you know, we still say what we want, and it's just about being able to feel really comfortable with someone and knowing that you have their trust and their love to be able to do that. But I don't let my friends dictate. You know,
You're like,
yeah, it's okay. Well, you hate my hair, but that's okay. I like my hair, so.
Well, Christy and I, we've been friends for a couple years now. We're really close. We've gone through some different hurdles in our friendship. We've had some kind of blowouts, and we've had we're really close right now. Really, like she's kind of my husband, or I'm your husband, whatever.
Okay, this
My
just
friend
got weird.
Something like that.
Did we just get public?
I take care of her kids. But some of our fights, what do you think? Or not fights? Or what? What do you want to call it?
Disagreements.
Disagreements.
Yes.
What?
I think fighting definitely has like a violent connotation to it, so I prefer to stray from fights.
What do you think we could have done better the first time around?
Well, definitely. I think what we did right was we definitely decided that we were going to help keep each other accountable in certain areas that we both struggle with, and that we definitely we both acknowledge that we struggle in specific areas, and we wanted to help each other. And I think when I reflect back on what happened when we had that first disagreement, I think about how I approached the situation. And I think what I've learned over the last few months, I was trying to figure out, what did I do wrong? I was just doing what she asked me to do, you know, and I was just calling her on her stuff. And what I figured out after a few months of really thinking about it and reflecting was that I forgot to remind you how much I loved you and how much I care about you. Weird. Okay. No, but really, you know, rather than just confronting you with the situation, I had forgotten to sandwich it in love, right? To say, Dana, I really care about you. I'm worried about you. This is why. And again, I'm not saying this to, you know, make you feel bad about yourself. I'm saying it because I care about you, and I care about where I see you headed, right? And instead, it came off by just, you know, by laying it out there. You know, you walked away from the situation feeling like I said, you're bad, you know, and that is not what you want to do in a friendship. You just want to encourage and lift up. And I forgot that part. I'm so sorry.
I forgive you, and I love you.
I love you.
Yay! After school special. All right, we're gonna wrap things up. But advice that you would give to women and their friendships if they're having a fight right now.
My advice, you know what? You have to be as honest as humanly possible with the people that are closest to you, and you cannot be afraid, and you have to find the courage, you really do, to tell them how you feel, because otherwise it won't work.
I second that, and I would say definitely sandwiching any kind of confrontation with loving words is something that I am going to take with me into all of my relationships in the future.
I think they both hit the nail on the head. I mean, if you're going to have those confrontations, you have to be kind about it too, right? You have to sandwich it with love, but still be honest enough with that person to say exactly what is on your mind, but in a really nice way.
It's okay to be honest. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, it's the best.
You have to be.
Have to be.
All right, so love on your best friends. Thanks so much for watching. We'll be right back right after this. I'm Dana Foster, and you are watching Independent Chick. We've been covering Aboriginal Music Week, and right now I have a Tribe Called Red. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
You guys have been very busy this past year. What have been the biggest highlights this year for you and your career? You've been independent artists, working so hard, and a lot of those rewards have been paying off this year.
I guess the first thing was the Polaris shortlist nomination. Yeah, it's been huge.
Yeah, it was really big. Winning 4 Aboriginal Music Awards is pretty crazy at the APCMAs.
Yeah, for sure. That's what I was going to say.
So if you had an opportunity to take a moment looking back over your career, what moment in your career would you take a moment to re-experience or redo, and what would you change differently?
What would I change? Wow. Wow. I don't know. That's a tough one.
Yeah, I don't know. The things have been going pretty good so far. I don't have too many things to go back and, you know.
There's not a lot we would change. Yeah. I'm trying to think of what we'd like relive.
New Orleans. I'd love to relive New Orleans. We went to New Orleans and it was amazing.
Yeah, we played the Jazz Fest. We're the first all electronic group to play the New Orleans Jazz Fest, which is kind of cool.
You guys are pioneering in this industry. What does that feel like to be a pioneer in this industry and to have you are put up on a pedestal and you're having to have to interact with a lot of different people? Is that hard to handle at times?
Yeah, I mean, it can be draining, for sure.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. I'm super social, so I love meeting new people, and yeah, it's awesome.
What are the biggest things, a lot of artists that are younger, that are looking up to you and wanting to be an artist, what are those times when they're ready to give up? You've been in that moment where you've wanted to give up. What advice can you give to those kids that are wanting to give up?
Don't. Yeah, you know, like, I mean, what we did with Tribe Called Red was just all about, you know, getting out there and doing it. You know, and if you put enough energy into something, then you can make something out of it. So.
I think surrounding yourself with positive people and the right people is the most important thing. I mean, you know, you surround yourself with negative people, it's just going to get you down and you'll start giving up.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no matter what you do, too, try and see it through. That's kind of it. Like, finish whatever you have, like, seeing in your head sort of thing. And, like, once you get it done, people will either recognize it or not. And it's always a learning experience. So just kind of finish what you do.
In the show Independent Chick, we do talk a lot about relationships. This is the last question, but you guys being in relationships, what are the hardest things that you can that you've had to go through and that you can advise other people in relationships?
I'm the wrong person to ask me that. You don't want to ask me that question.
Yeah, for me, it's definitely a learning experience for my wife and me, and I have 2 daughters at home too. So we're trying to learn how to cope with everything, with me being gone all the time, and her having to deal with 2 kids and a job. So it's tough. It's definitely tough.
How do you deal with that?
I don't know. I think, like, you know, relationships in general, like just human relationships, just try to see things from other people's perspective all the time.
Dr. Bill.
Yeah, good one.
Good one. Way to go.
Yeah, good deflection.
All right, thank you so much. We've had an opportunity to talk to a Tribe Called Red. Thank you for taking a moment to chat with us.
No, thank you.
All right. Welcome back to Independent Chick. I'm Dana Foster, and thank you so much for joining us. Today we are talking about being independent within friendships and the complexities of female friendships. And we're going to be speaking today with Carolyn Bergen. Thank you so much for joining us. It's always a pleasure having you here.
Great to be here.
And so I guess really what we're going to be asking or talking about today is how can friendships help someone become independent?
That's huge. We are hardwired for relationship, and when women can find meaningful friendships with each other, we become stronger and more courageous and in a much better position to be independent. When we have good friends, they help remind us of who we are. And when we remember that, that helps us to be more courageous and brave. Friends help support us and tell us we can do it and give us that encouragement. And when we try something and it doesn't go so well, friends can help kind of be a soft place to land and to kind of tell us that they remember who we are and that it's okay and that they still care about us. So friendships are huge for independence.
How, as a friend, to encourage someone to be more independent, how can somebody do that? How can I encourage somebody to be more independent?
I think it's important to just help a person be fully who they are. And what I think is a helpful way to think about it is, do you encourage your friends to fit in or do you encourage your friends to belong? When people try to fit into a friendship group, they think, what should I be wearing? Or what are people listening to? What should I listen to? Or how should I talk? And they're trying to fit in by being who the others are. If we're encouraging people to belong, we're saying, who are you? Bring that to us. Let's celebrate who you are. Let's encourage you to explore who you are and to try that out in ways that affirm and encourage who they are. And that can be really cool.
I think that women tend to be very dependent in terms of advice about relationships, about the partner that they're with. Do you think we're too dependent on our friendships for relationship advice?
I think we need to bounce ideas off of our friends, and maybe just one or two or three friends that really know who we are and that whose opinion that we really value and trust, because they can help us be more of who we are. I think it's important when you are a friend to not tell them what you think you would do, but to help them encourage what they think they should do, right? To really empower them.
Friendships aren't always rainbows and unicorns. Sometimes we fight. How do you effectively fight, or how do you?
Well, I think it's important.
Fight with a friend.
I think it's important to recognize that when you fight with a friend, it's probably because the two of you have differences of opinions and feel safe expressing that with each other. And so true friends are going to have conflict because they feel comfortable being themselves. I think it's important to recognize and to hold on to perspective that when you disagree with a friend, you really care about each other, and there's a bit of a problem that is affecting the friendship, but that doesn't disappear the caring, that doesn't have the caring and the friendship disappear when you disagree. So it's important to remember this foundation of, I care about the other person, and when they do something I don't understand, there's probably a more important reason for it than not for it. And so how do I be curious? How do I explore what's going on, and so that we can have a discussion about it rather than just me blasting them, which probably isn't going to result in a good response.
Sometimes we do have friends that are kind of nasty. How do you, what's that about? How do you deal with that?
Well, I think you're right. I think women can be so nasty to each other, hey?
Kind of catty to each other.
And we sort of criticize other people's clothes or who they're dating or what they say. And it starts
just speaking to people, kind of mean.
And
agitated.
I think sometimes there's this perception of, if I put somebody down, that's going to raise me up, because when they don't look as good, then I will feel better. And really, as the two of you, as the two of us are sitting here right now, we know that that doesn't really make any sense. But what woman hasn't said, I'm going to tear her down so that she doesn't look as good, and then I will feel better about myself? It doesn't really work that way, but we try to make that work that way. And
do people actually think that, like in their, I'm going to tear that person down because it makes me feel better, or is it more just a subconscious defense?
It's not something that people say, oh, I'm going to rip them apart so I feel better. But I think when you kind of look at what went on there and what was the purpose of that, I think there's some of that underlying without actually people putting it into words.
Well, if you look at high school girls, like the mean girls, they literally will attack girls to bring them down.
Right.
Is that from high school? A girls still act like that in their adulthood?
Yeah, I think there's some of that, right? And sometimes when we're stressed or when we're feeling threatened, it brings out the inner high school girl inside each of us, for sure.
I had that not too long ago, and I didn't know how to handle it. Last year, I had just like this being attacked, and I felt like, threatened, and I didn't understand why, and I kept on thinking, like, I'm in my 30s. We're both in our 30s. Why is this happening?
Right.
It doesn't go away?
It can. I think it's important.
Not that I'm innocent, but I'm saying, like.
I think it's important to recognize that that exists, but to place the value of the friendships of the people that you truly are safe with, not the ones that are cutting you down.
Yeah.
To hold the value of people who have earned the right to receive your trust. People who haven't earned that right and say things about you, I think you have to put through that filter and decide how much you're going to listen to that. I think it's important to remember that when we put people down, that our friends go, oh, that's what she says about people when they're not around or in front of their face. I better watch what I say. And it helps make us not a very good friend when we're cutting other people down and when we're the mean girl. And to be aware that that has an effect, a ripple effect on our friendships.
It seems so silly to ask this question, but
Okay.
how do you be a good friend?
I think of friendship as kind of like a bucket, and friendships don't happen in big, huge gestures of grandiose kindness. Friendships happen one drop at a time. Friends are there for each other. Friends support each other. Friends laugh with each other. Friends ask each other how it's going or send a text. That you just show ways over and over again. I care about you. You matter to me. I'm here for you. Let's spend some time together and let's be there for each other. That happens just over time. And when friendships develop over time, then you have this lifelong feeling of this person is good for me and they care about me and I'm safe with them. And that's what a good friendship is all about.
Is there a time when you should be cutting a friend loose?
I think it's important to recognize that there are sometimes seasons to friendships. We only have capacity for so many close friendships, and if a person's in a space where it feels like they're being destructive and they're not being good to you, to really be real with yourself and to be mindful and to ask yourself, is this friendship good to me? And if it's not, what am I going to do?
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us here on another episode of Independent Chick. I took a lot from that, so thank you so much.
Great to be here.
All right.
Thanks.